The Industry 101 Summer School Series presents a special OETV presentation. All right. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Industry 101 Masterclass. Thank you for coming. I'd like to do like a little roll call. So if we can go around and each person introduce themselves. We'll start with this gentleman here, Mr. Robbie Robinson.
Yes, sir. How you doing, Rob?
So my name is D'Angelo, guys.
My name is Shaquille Watkin.
Hey, my name is Roseayy.
I'm going to jump right in. And first of all, again, this is a real crucial time in the music industry for a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So the information that I have comes from a blog that was written by Angela Mastrogiacomo. It was a blog that she submitted to Sonicbids in January, actually on the 2nd of January of this year, right? So obviously there's been a lot of things, a lot of events that have taken place since then. So some of these predictions will either be still on point or maybe just a little shifted. So our topic for today, of course, are the 5 music industry trends that we should be aware of in 2020. And here they are. So the first one she has is that there'll be more power shifted towards indie labels. That's number one. Number two is that music and virtual reality will become one. So they'll somehow be merged together. The third one is about tech bundling, which some of you may have not heard of that before, but we'll definitely cover what that is in more detail. And then there'll be a shift in the way we consume music. That's a pretty interesting thing because that's a constant involvement. And the fifth one will be, there'll be a stronger focus on alternative income. So I'm gonna start jumping right into the first one, excuse me, and then we'll take some questions right at the end of what I state about the first topic, which was the power shift to indie labels. Okay, so the reason why she says this will happen, which I can honestly see, is that there's 2 very important elements that would cause that. One is that artists will have a lot more impact and say on what happens with their careers and their catalog and pertaining to that label, more so than they would with a major label. With a major label, they're more like an employee. With an indie label, they're going to be more like a partner, which also will lead to the second point, which is that it will also lead to an increase in the amount of percentages that an artist could expect to see. For a major label, you're probably going to get something within a range of 10% to 15% of the suggested listed retail price of anything that you release through that label. With an indie label, because your role is more involved, you would probably see more of an increase close to 50% and sometimes more, depending on the role you play in the deal that you make with that label. So there's a label of note, an indie label that you may be aware of. It's called We Did It Records. I don't know if you are familiar with them, but you may be familiar with some of their artists, Tory Lanez, R.L. Grimes. There's a couple of others, and it's a really progressive label. One of the things that they did, which I think is very fascinating, is that they also formed, and I think they started in 2012. They started something a few years ago called Tombstone Records. And what they did is they did a form of marketing where they take some of their singles from some of their artists, they package it together and they give it away. So you can download it And the whole idea is that by doing that, you'll be introduced to these artists without having to pay for it, which will spark your interest enough to go back and listen to the other pieces of their catalog and maybe make a purchase there. So I'm gonna pause here and just see if anybody has any questions. If you have a question, just kind of stick a finger up and then I will I'll choose. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Roosevelt.
Okay, so my question is, you know, it seems nice and all, you get a bigger percentage, a bigger cut of the proceeds from what you make, but what is the incentive from the corporations doing this? Is it like, what, they're just trying to be nice to artists, or what do they get out of this? You know what I mean? Because I feel like it sounds too good to be true. If
they release your product on their label, you're drawing more attention to them too. So that helps to push their brand and build their brand. It also brings in revenue from other sources outside of what you're doing, because you're not the only artist they have there. So they're still going to make money, which allows them sometimes to form partnerships with other people. Yep. So
so basically, if they have a better deal, then more people will side with them.
Yes. The word will get out. Yeah, if the word will get out. You know, I got a better deal over here at ABC indie label than I did at. I mean, this is cool and they're huge and everybody knows them, but I'm not getting as much money over there as I do over here. The other thing is, it's an indie label, so they may or may not have the same level of exposure as a. But because they know that, they're going to fight extra hard for you to get you the exposure that they need to get for you.
Got you.
All right, so number 2 was that music and virtual reality will become one. So this is very interesting, because a lot of people don't really pay a lot of attention to virtual reality unless they're talking about a video game in most cases. But this is something completely different. And when I was putting this together, I just kind of did my own research just to kind of see what was going on. Fascinating. So what they have, there's a thing now, this format where Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, Warner Music Group, and even Rock Nation have gotten this thing where they are licensing some of their video footage of actual performances strictly for this virtual reality performance format. So there's a company called Melody VR, and what they do is they take that footage and put it in this setting so that you can actually pay for a ticket, pick your seat. You can either be in the back of the auditorium or in the front row, or you can even, in some cases, be up on the stage. They have those kinds of settings. They also have more like club settings. They have more intimate settings where it's like a special showcase, or maybe it's a VIP performance that's even more intimate. You know, maybe it might just be a small group of people there, but the bottom line is that you are in the room. You feel it 360 degrees, you're there, which is a whole different way of experiencing music than most people are accustomed to. Dell Technologies actually started a thing called the Human Machine Partnership, which is developing technology to also get into the game and do these same things. So essentially, especially in light of what we're dealing with now with the social distancing and people not being able to go to the concerts in droves, you know, the days of where I performed and saw a crowd of 120,000 people, I don't think we'll ever see that again. So something like this may suffice, or people will grow to become more comfortable with doing this. And for some people, this will be the only experience they have with live entertainment, because maybe they've never been to a concert before because they were too young before all this happened. So very interesting to see how that plays out. Are there any questions about that? Any comments about that?
I find it actually pretty interesting. However, it's like a bittersweet kind of thing behind it, because I feel like it takes away the actual feel of the crowd and the emphasis on the people. You know, you want to feel people's energy around you. You want to feel that vibe, and you can't walk up to that girl that you see in the virtual reality and you're like, hey, how you doing? It's just you in your house in a confinement by yourself. So I mean, it's a great idea for people who, you know, who maybe have anxiety or things of that nature, or have problems with the lights and disturbances of loud music where they can adjust their sound. But I think for the pretty majority of regular people who want to have that party experience, they're definitely not going to give too much about the social distancing, because we're still out. The people who party are still out protesting right now.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is that as long as it's safe and they find a way to make it safe for everybody, that would obviously be the best way to do it. So we can go back to the way we were.
Exactly.
Because that's part of the whole.
There's nothing better than that way.
Yeah, that's part of the whole concert experience, is to be able to be in that atmosphere with all those people who have the same energy as you and they like the same music. You know, you're unified with a couple of thousand people or a couple of hundred, depending on the size of the venue, but you're connecting with that artist because you're in the same space as them, right? So, and that's something too, you know, that a lot of people just kind of, you know, I don't know if they overlooked it, but they haven't found a way outside of this virtual reality format so far to come as close to that as possible. Prior to this, it's just been, since the pandemic hit, people were doing like Facebook or Instagram concerts, you know, or they may go on and sing one song or 5 songs or whatever it is. That's probably a little bit more personable because you actually see the artist there, but it's still not the same thing as being in the room with them. So I get your point. Anybody else have something they want to add to that?
So in terms of like virtual reality and music, do you think that artists somewhat have kind of influenced that direction, like Drake and Travis Scott have in Fortnite? In a way, because through social media platforms, like I feel like a lot of artists have started to go towards that route in terms of like gaming, in terms of just like virtual reality in general.
Well, that's
do you think they have a hearsay as to like what?
So if I heard your question correctly, you're asking if artists like Drake and some of the others, because of their involvement with video games and such, that was an influence on people moving in this direction with virtual reality. Not really. Yeah. Because the video game market is a kind of a separate thing, but it does have something to do with something else that we're going to cover. So that's still a very valid point that you brought up. I think the virtual reality thing comes from the fact that people are losing money. You know, you have like the Live Nations, you know, of the world. These promoters, these live show promoters, they're not making any money right now. So, and of course, if there are no concerts, then the artists are not making any money either. Because as soon as this hit, everybody's concerts got shut down globally. You know, people, they held on to their tickets and hoped that maybe this was going to blow over really quick and they'd be able to still go. But that's not what happened.
What he said, it basically made a lot of sense, because I'm thinking maybe these artists are tired of maybe the situation with Ariana Grande when, you know, the tragic situation with the bombing. So he's making a good point where maybe it's about their safety as well. And I'm thinking, does it make the world a safer place to do the virtual instead of in person due to the chaos and the looting and things of that nature? So this actually might be beneficial to the country, actually. So
yeah, but well, definitely from that perspective, that's a whole other thing. You know, just the whole safety aspect of it. You know, people being assaulted, or, you know, unfortunately their lives being taken. And I have been on stage, and I'm on stage looking into the audience, and I can see a fight break out right over to my right, and it's spreading virally, like it's going across to a point where it's going to hit the next person, and then it hits them, and then they hit somebody else, and it's like literally moving through the crowd, and the security has to run through and try to break it up, you know, before it really spreads and becomes an all-out, you know, brawl. I've also seen large crowds where none of that happened. You know, so but still that element is there. So from a security perspective, that is still something to consider as a factor that would make it more feasible to do the virtual reality too. So I think there's kind of a balance of why this could work and be a good thing, and as well as what we're going to miss. So there's pros and cons, some takeaways, some things that that we'll have to give up in order to have that, if we're going to have just that. But that's a good question. Good point. So we're going to move on to the next thing, which was the tech bundling, which was something that a lot of people didn't think about. So how many of you, by show of hands, are familiar with bundling and what that actually is?
Yep, definitely familiar.
So Rob, you're familiar with it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So for the rest of you who may be a little unfamiliar, bundling is just essentially what it says it is. You're putting some things together and you're selling it or promoting it in one unit, right? So with tech bundling, what she's saying, what Angela is saying in her blog, is that technology companies are starting to expand in that area and match up with other tech companies, and that slowly that's going to move into the music industry a little bit more than it has in the past. So some examples of bundling, and we deal with bundling all the time. They don't call it that outright, but that's what it is. Amazon's doing something right now with Prime bundling, with the Prime bundle. Cable is the biggest form of bundling, right? So you have a cable network and they have a number of different stations, right? Or other, so you have the Stars network and you have HBO, and they may have like as many as 10 channels in their network on cable, and you pay a subscription price every month to be able to have access to any of those in packages, right? Because they know everybody's not going to like every single thing, so they find different ways to package it so it's more appealing to you. Back in decades past, when people were buying actual hardcover product of music on a more consistent basis, because it is still selling, just that predominantly most people are buying stuff online. They used to do compilation CDs, right? So Sony Music may have maybe 10 new artists coming out, or maybe they may have 5 new artists coming out, and they want to put out an album that only has those 5 artists, maybe 2 songs a piece, so that you can check it out and you're aware that they have a release coming. Then you can look out for it and perhaps purchase it. It draws interest that way. There are problems with bundling. There are problems, 4 that are very notable. One is that the consumer may not see the value of getting a whole packet. They may not like everything in that packet, so they may only want one of those things. So they may not see the value of doing that or the need to do it. Another one is that they may have problems making the purchase. Sometimes it's so complicated to get it or to make a purchase that they just give up and stop doing it. Another thing is that some components in that bundle may be cheaper just to get it by itself than it costs to get it along with 3 other things that they may not like as much or want as much. And then the other one, the 4th thing, is the fact that they just don't see. Oh wait. Okay. Oh, there's no incremental profit. So in other words, this money mainly done for promotional purposes. So this isn't something that you're going to sell throughout the year. It may just be for a specific release or a specific event or something like that. So what it costs to package something like that or put it together, it may not play out very well in terms of a profit margin at the end. So any comments or questions about that one, about the bundling?
Now, that makes sense. You explained it pretty well. I think sometimes, depending on what you're selling too, bundling does help kind of push those initial sales. Like I stuff be released in a bundle, and that would kind of boost the sale rather than just selling a single album. Sometimes it could definitely be a big help, especially when it comes to bigger projects. And, you know, sometimes they'll give you a bundle and that like they're giving you, you know, like a deal, like the higher, but they're giving you a lesser price. So some people will go buy more, thinking that they're, you know, getting a better deal on them buying that than just the single album or song, you know, just in general. Like if you put a song with a music video and then some digital book of pictures or something, you know, I've seen fans like that kind of stuff. Yep.
Right. All right. So, yeah, my thing is on another standpoint of like I feel like this makes it with bundling. I feel like it makes it so artists have to actually be conscious about the content they put out, and they have to actually try and like put out better content. They can't put out like mediocre content, because if they do, then people won't buy that. Where before you had to buy the whole album to listen to the songs you wanted to listen to, but now you can just buy whatever you want to listen to. So if you're making half songs or something that's not as good as you think it should be, people won't buy it. So I think it makes artists have to work actually for the people they're trying to sell what they're trying to sell to. You know what I mean?
Right. That's true. And the minute that they started giving people the option of what they wanted to buy online, that became a thing. And I don't think it was announced, but people saw that right away. You know, it wasn't a thing where it was officially made as a statement, but people saw they weren't selling as much as they used to when people were forced to buy their stuff. Moving on to number 4, the way we consume music. So we already know, we just talked a little bit about, you know, the whole streaming, and people probably aren't downloading as much as they used to. But here's an aspect of consuming music that people just don't pay that much attention to. I'll just say it. Alexa, please play me a song about my girlfriend leaving and moving out today. And then a song will come out, and she'll repeat your statement, you know, and then she'll find this song. There's a gentleman out there right now who has about 20,000 songs on Alexis's format, because if he heard me say that, what I just said, he would go home and write a song about it. And then he would submit it into their playlist, and he gets paid every time Alexa plays that song. All right. So he's got 20,000. He makes thousands of dollars a year from doing that. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. Yeah. I stubbed my toe. Ouch. Alexa, please play me a song. Yeah, it is. It is. And I think it's something that goes over most people's heads. We're not even thinking about that, but that's a huge stream of revenue. And in addition to Alexa, we have Siri, we have Google Assistant. There's some other ones out there, but those are probably like the top 3 that most people are familiar with. And I think it's notable that if you have the capacity to do that, then you really should. You know, it's money that people are not going after because they don't think about it. Anybody else have any comments or questions about that? Did I see a hand go up? Anybody? All right.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, what you said was all facts. Yeah, I got no questions on that one.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many other opportunities out there. And I want to encourage everybody to look into them, do some research, think outside of the box. Let's move on to number 5, a stronger focus on alternative revenue and income. Right. So I'll be very brief. I'll just list the ones that she talked about, right? Touring, which we kind of touched on a little bit, merchandise sales, licensing, which led to the comment that I believe, was it Roosevelt that made that comment? I mean, not Roosevelt, Shaq, the comment about Drake and, you know, music being in video games. That's a form of music licensing, right? And there's so much money involved with that. Getting music into commercials, getting it into television shows, getting it into movies. There are certainly a lot of ways to get that done. There are companies, music licensing companies, that specifically that's their job. They do a deal with you. They take your catalog, whatever you sign over to them to administer on your behalf, and they make sure they expose it to the music supervisors who make those decisions as to what's going to go in. So the other thing too is about the touring and the virtual concerts, or maybe even a release of some kind, when you're going to do a single release or album release. If you kind of center those things around an event as to when you're going to sell things, that sometimes is helpful, right, in terms of drawing attention to it. So what I'd like to do is, just based on what we just covered, how many of you have heard about 2 or more of those things that we covered out of those 5?
Yep, I definitely have.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All
At
right.
least 2 of them. At least 2 of them.
At least 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was going to say something?
No, I was just saying, like, yeah, a few of them I didn't know about, but yeah, 2 of them, like 2 or 3 of them I probably knew about.
Okay. Now, in terms of the ones that you haven't heard about them, what do you think about those things?
I think the virtual is definitely a good one that I didn't really know the full in-depth definition and what they were really doing. I just saw like a few video game concerts, and I figured everything that was going on, but I didn't know how in-depth they were, willing to go with it.
I wish we could go longer. I wish we had an hour, but we don't. But I just want to thank all of you for coming and participating. If you're interested, I'll let you know about the next one, and we'll take it from there.
Sure.
All right.
All right. So thank you, D'Angelo. Thank you, Robbie Robinson. Thank you, Roseayy and Shaq. Thank you for joining us on the Industry 101 Masterclass. I'm your host.
Definitely.
And we'll see you again soon.
All right,
All right, guys. It's been a pleasure, guys. Definitely.
Very informative. Loved it.
Why not release it under your own label, under your own imprint? And sometimes just doing that, now people are not dealing with you as an artist, they're dealing with you as a business. If you're in the studio all the time just cranking out songs, you're not out promoting it. And if you're just cranking out songs just to put out and you're not promoting it, they're not going to sell. You can either grab an opportunity, or you can take advantage of an opportunity, or you can create your own opportunity.
Yeah.